Good afternoon YouTube, and welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to give you my top reasons why I believe the Royal Enfield Himalayan is the best adventure bike you can buy, even today in 2021. So I'll start by giving a short overview, then we'll get straight into why you should buy the Royal Enfield Himalayan instead of anything else that's on the market. Stay tuned. There's an area in northwestern India called Ladakh. The sort of capital of that area is called Leh, so it's kind of synonymously known as Leh Ladakh. Now, it's in the Himalayan mountains, and for generations it's been a mecca for motorcyclists. Leh Ladakh sort of loosely translates as the land of high passes. So if you can imagine an area that's got really high mountain passes, in fact it's got the highest roads in the world. It's got snow, it's got incredibly difficult terrain, river crossings, on-road and off-road, and very, very changeable weather. Then you start to get a picture of Ladakh and the Himalayas. Given that Royal Enfield have been such a big deal in India since the 1950s, the majority of people who were riding up into the Himalayan mountains were doing that on classic 500s and bullets and that type of thing. So in and around 2014, Royal Enfield started to develop the concept of a dual sport or adventure bike specifically designed with the Himalayans, with the Ladakh region in mind. So the concept for the Himalayan was born. But Royal Enfield didn't produce this bike on their own. They have a research and development centre in Leicester in England. So they teamed up with Harris Performance, who are synonymous in the industry with their sports bikes and their performance tuning. Harris Performance helped them to set up the chassis, the frame on the bike. They built a mule. They did a lot of the test running for them and getting the setup correct on the bike. The bike was tested in racetracks in the UK and in Chennai in India. It was also taken across the Welsh mountains, and it was taken up into the Himalayas for its final development and its final testing stage. So the final result for me is a fantastic machine, and I think Royal Enfield should be proud of what they produced in the end. Okay, let's get into the number one reason why I bought this bike in 2021, and that's the 3 R's. It's rugged, robust and reliable. Given that I'm going to be taking this bike potentially around the world, I need something that's not going to break easily. You want to buy a bike that's really tough, it's really robust, it's not going to fall apart at the first stitch, and I think the Royal Enfield excels at that. As I say, there's not a lot on this bike that's going to go wrong. So you might ask, how do I know that it's a reliable bike given that you only bought it 3 or 4 months ago? Well, there's plenty of examples there online of people who have taken this bike all around the world. The most obvious ones are obviously people like Itchy Boots, who took her bike from India through Southeast Asia, then all the way back to Europe, or Kamikaze Moto, who took his bike all the way up into Prudhoe Bay in Alaska. But they're not the only ones. The internet is littered with people who have taken this bike on very long motorcycle journeys, some of them tens of thousands of miles, and they've done it with barely a glitch. So what you're starting to see is a bike that's developed a real track record for being tough, for being reliable, for being robust, and for being difficult to break. And for me, that's incredibly important, especially given the journey that I intend to take this bike on. So that's my number one point. So that takes me on quite nicely to my second point, and that's simplicity and ease of maintenance. Now sure, you want to buy a bike that's robust and it's reliable and it's difficult to break, but if something does go wrong with it, it also needs to be easy to fix, something that you can do yourself at the side of the road. But more importantly than that, if you can't do it, it needs to be something that the local mechanic can repair. Now the same thing can't be said for some of the other motorcycle manufacturers, even in this segment. The more complex a bike is, the more plastics it has, the more technologically advanced it is with regards to its electrics and its TFT displays and all of these types of things, the more difficult it is to repair. Now this bike is so simple to maintain that I believe that almost anybody can do it with really rudimentary tools. You know, socket set, spanners, screwdrivers, Allen keys, and you can do just about anything you need to do on the bike. Now obviously if the bike's under warranty, I don't recommend you voiding the warranty by doing the repairs yourself or doing any servicing and maintenance yourself. Take it to the service centre, don't void your warranty. But in all other instances, there's nothing really to hold you back from repairing this bike on your own at the side of the road. A few rudimentary tools, spanner, socket, screwdriver, Allen keys, you can do pretty much everything you need to do on this bike, whether that's servicing or maintenance or a repair. And I think that's a key ingredient to the success of this bike. The Royal Enfield Himalayan is really geared towards ease of repair in really remote, difficult regions. And that's where some of your bigger adventure bikes like your BMW GS fall down. There's absolutely no point having a big, very expensive, technologically advanced adventure bike that when it breaks down it can't be repaired, and you've quite literally got to put it on the back of a truck and cart it across 3 countries just to get someone to repair it for you. For me, that's no adventure riding. That sounds like a disaster. So that takes me on very nicely to point number 3, and that's cost and affordability. So you've got a bike that's rugged, reliable and hard to break. If something does go wrong with it, it's simple and easy to maintain. The third point for me is it's not expensive to do it either. Parts are inexpensive for this, doesn't matter whether they're originals or they're aftermarket. So if you break something on it, it's not expensive to replace it. When people talk about cost and affordability, they tend to look at the upfront cost, which is significant. Now I bought this bike for £4,500 on the road here in the UK, which is not an insignificant sum of money, but it's a lot less expensive than any other bike in its class. It's less expensive than the KTM 390, it's less expensive than the GS 310, and it's a lot less expensive than a lot of the bigger adventure bikes on the market. But cost and affordability is not just about your upfront costs, and it's not just about how inexpensive it is to replace parts. It's about insurance. How cheap is it to insure? It's about fuel economy. What is it like? How many miles will it do on a tank of fuel? It's about servicing, it's about maintenance, it's about upkeep, it's about replacing any parts that might come off. The other thing you need to consider is, if I go out and I buy something that's a much more expensive machine than this, then it means I've got less money in my pocket to do the journey. I've got less money to do the things that I want to do when I'm actually travelling on the bike. It almost becomes a case of what's the point, you know? If you're buying a £20,000 bike, you might be afraid to drop it. I know I would think twice about it. So that brings me on to number 4, and that's Modability. This is quite possibly one of the most modifiable machines that you can buy on the market, and that's in any of the adventure categories. It doesn't matter the bike. The list of suppliers and aftermarket parts for this is endless. It's really quite mind-boggling, to be honest. Now, it's important to note that the Himalayan is adventure ready right out the box. You don't actually need to do a lot of modification on it to get it on the road. Some people don't even put pannier frames on it, they just throw bags and stuff over the back. But the point is, you can really make this bike your own. You can change the feel of the bike, you can change the way the bike's set up, you can change the way the bike handles, you can personalise it, you can really make it look a little bit unique and put your own stamp on there. Take for example these crash bars that are on the side of the Himalayan at the front of the bike. Most bikes will throw plastic fairings on there. I mean, they might make you a bit faster, they're certainly going to look pretty, they're going to break when you drop the bike. But these are not just for protection, they've got a functional purpose. They've got bolt holes, they've got screw holes through here. You can put bags on the front, you can put extra water on here, you can carry additional fuel cans. The thing is, you can modify it in any way that you want it to be. You can accessorise it, and you can really start to rebalance the bike. You know, throw more of that weight towards the front of the bike so that it's not just back end heavy. You're less likely to lose the front of the bike in a crash. It's only now that I'm sort of 4,500 miles in and I'm getting ready to take this bike on a long adventure that I've really started to modify it. And I've already taken it across pretty much every type of terrain that this bike's liable to see. So with regards to modifications, this bike is a real winner. There's so many things you can do, and I think that's pretty cool that you can make the bike look and feel the way you want it to. So this leads me on to the last thing I want to talk about, and that's character. Before I bought this bike, I heard lots of people on forums and online saying things like the bike's got character. I really love the character of the bike, and I was saying to myself, what does that mean? And it's only once you buy this bike and you start to run it for a while that you start to understand exactly what people mean by character. It's hard to define and it's hard to put your finger on, but I'm going to try and describe it like this. Character of this bike is linked to its characteristics. The fact that in 2021 it's still got wire spoke wheels, which are absolutely essential in an off-road bike. The fact that it's got 32 Newton meters of torque at only 4,000 RPM. Well, why is that important? It means that the bike will quite literally pull you out of a ditch in first gear or in fifth gear. The bike doesn't care. It'll just keep going. It's got that chuggability factor. The way that it handles on the road, the way that it handles round town. You know, this bike really excels on little twisty country roads. I mean, it quite literally, and I'm not joking, handles like a train on a track. The Himalayan's not a small bike, and it's not a light bike. It's not particularly heavy either compared to some others in its class. The bike is big enough to carry your house, literally. The bike is big enough to carry your house, but it's not so big that you're afraid to take your house off-road. You know, it's not so big that you won't take it across that river. It's not so heavy that you don't want to take it into those woods, because at some point when you're off-road, especially with a big heavy adventure bike or with something less capable, you might find that you've run out of ability, and that's where fun ends and trouble begins. So with the Royal Enfield Himalayan, you tend to be able to go places, in my opinion, you can go places where others might fear to tread. Now, I've done nearly 5,000 miles on this bike and I've had it everywhere. There's not been a stream or a river, there's not been a hill or a mountain or a bog or anywhere where I've thought, I don't have the ability to handle that bike in that terrain. I can go there. That's character. So it comes as no real surprise to me that this bike has gained a real following amongst motorcyclists in the dual sport and adventure world. It's no wonder really that a lot of Himalayan owners give their bikes a name, because it's like having a puppy dog. It's got a personality, it wants to make you happy, it's fun, and you want to take it out and you want to exercise it every day. That's a Himalayan. If I could sum it up, I would say that this bike's a really good all-rounder. It's not perfect, it's not brilliant, and sure, a Honda Goldwing is going to be better on the highway, some bikes are going to be faster, a dirt bike's obviously going to be better off-road, but this bike is the perfect jack of all trades. It does everything that you ask it to do well, and for me, what more can you ask for from an adventure bike? A friend of mine who's a keen biker once described the Himalayan as being built like a tank, and for me that's probably the best description you can give it. It's solid, it's reliable, there's not a lot to break on there, it's really simple to repair and maintain, it's cost effective and affordable, you can modify it in any way you want and you can really make it your own. It's got character, it's a lot of fun, it'll do anything you need it to do. That's it for this video, guys. I hope you liked this. If you did, give me a thumbs up, subscribe down below, and if you want to see the next modification video on the Royal Enfield Himalayan, watch this video here. I'll see you in the next one. Beautiful, huh?